Welcome back to the Cycle Starters podcast. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and I'm thrilled to welcome our special guest today, Luce Beaulieu. She's a trauma-informed somatic educator, midlife empowerment coach, and the creator of the Midlife Temple. Today, we're diving deep into the transformative journey of menopause, not as something to be feared or endured, but as a powerful portal to wisdom and erotic sage essence. Luce brings a unique perspective, combining holistic and tantric approaches to help women reclaim their wholeness and radiance during this significant life transition. Luce's own journey through menopause was intense and challenging, yet ultimately empowering. She's here to share her wisdom about how we can approach midlife as a sacred initiation rather than a medical condition to be managed. In this episode, we'll explore ancestral healing, cyclical living, and how to awaken our sensual life force as we embrace the wisdom years. Whether you're approaching menopause, in the midst of it, or simply curious about conscious aging, this conversation offers valuable insights for everyone. Now, before we get into today's conversation, I do have a favor to ask. If you are enjoying the content that we are creating here on the Cycle Starters podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps the algorithm get our episodes in front of more viewers. So thank you in advance for that. I really, really appreciate it. And so without further delay, let's welcome Luce to the Cycle Starters podcast. Hello, beautiful. How are you?
Really well. Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited for this conversation and to dig into your story. I love that we're covering menopause and repatterning the way we relate to it. I think you have so much wisdom to share. Before we get into the story of how you got to where you are, I want to talk a little bit about your ancestral background. So what can you share with us about your blood ancestors?
Yeah, thank you so much for opening that topic. So like millions of people around the world, I did my 23andMe DNA test probably over 10 years ago. And what I found out actually really surprised me because so I'm from Canada, and specifically a province that's called Quebec, which is, mostly Francophone French. And I was expecting that I was going to have a lot of indigenous blood because in this colonized past, there's been a lot of unions between white settlers and indigenous peoples. And my father had always told me I probably have enough indigenous blood to be considered, indigenous. And so it always stayed with me. And so when I got my results back, that's what I was expecting was going to be a certain high percentage of indigenous and some white settler and some other things, and I'm actually mostly European in my DNA. I would say from memory, I think it was over 60 or 65%. I had a little bit of indigenous. I think it was around 10%. And then there was a mix of all different kinds of countries pretty much around the world. And so it was very surprising. I have to say, I felt a little sad because I do feel a lot of resonance with, even if it's like that 10% with my indigenous roots here in Canada. But yeah, that's my DNA background.
You know what? I really appreciate you sharing that story because I think some people are afraid to dive into their DNA, right? Because it disrupts the narrative that they've been told, the narrative they've been given by family. And so I'm sure there was a whole process, right? A whole integration process around that. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. All right. Well, so my next question is, when did this concept of ancestral healing even enter your consciousness, insofar as when did you realize things can be passed down from generation to generation, but also we have the power to change these cycles. We have the power to shift these patterns into a higher direction, into higher frequencies. Tell me about your journey around all of this.
Absolutely. So I think that for most of my life, I was living in a pattern of trauma from my early childhood, adolescence. My father was an extreme narcissist. My parents had a very, I would say, traumatic marriage. And, a lot of other factors as well. But I think that for a lot of my life, I was really living in survival mode. And when I started to dive into what is trauma, what is the effect of trauma on us, and then my healing process, that is when I actually realized that a lot of things are passed through generations, and that even though I was really focusing on my parents, my immediate, lineage, it didn't come from them. It came from way before them. And that's when it opened up a lot for me in terms of it's not just about healing myself in this lifetime. It's also about looking at my father's lineage, my mother's lineage, and to really go into that energetically, spiritually, to start healing things in a way that was much more profound and much more deeply rooted than simply regulating my nervous system and doing some trauma healing, which is great, which is necessary. But it opened the door to so much more. And maybe to answer your question a little bit more pointedly, I think it's really when I started to accept to be in connection with my father spiritually, because he passed away a very, very long time ago. It's when I accepted to be in connection with him spiritually and to feel into his life and then into his lineage before him, that I had a big breakthrough, actually. And I can share a little bit more about that. But in a nutshell, it's really when I started doing the somatic work and then the trauma healing work, then it opened up to everything else.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to hear this. And maybe this relates to the patterns you feel like you're breaking in this lifetime. Yeah, please tell us about connecting to your father and his lineage energetically. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually very recent. So it's still very vivid in me. So over a year ago, I started having a lot of pain in my right side. It started in my hip and then it shot down to my knee. And then there was a period of time I couldn't walk. Like
Mm.
literally I couldn't walk. And of course, the right side is the masculine side. And so I went to doctors, they couldn't find anything. So I started to really dive deeper into the psychosomatic source of what I was feeling. And at some point, what was coming through me, because especially my knee was just so painful. I'm translating because it was in French that it came to me, but it was something like it hurts to trust the masculine, or it hurts to stand or to lean. That was it. It hurts to lean on the masculine. That's what came through really, really, really strong. And that's also the time that I had done enough work on my feminine that I got really curious about my inner masculine. And that's when I started doing a lot of inner work and a lot of coaching work with my inner masculine to really get to know him, to get to a place where I could go towards inner union of my inner masculine and inner feminine. And there was one process that I did specifically with my father, where after going into meditation and connecting and all of that, he was really in front of me. And instead of closing myself off, which is what I would usually do, closing myself off, saying, no, I'm not going there, I opened myself up to the possibility of feeling what he must have been feeling to get to a point where he was such an extreme narcissist, because of course it always comes from extreme trauma. And I had this really vivid feeling in my body, in my somatic sensations, of how he must have been hurt, and how that hurt came from, in turn, generations and generations of people who hurt each other, all the way down to him, and the manifestation of all of that hurt and all that violence and oppression in him as a person, and then in his behavior as a father. Because of all the previous work I'd done and the process that I was in, I was able to open myself up to have so much compassion for him at the time. And it opened up then so much freedom to love him as the being that he was in his essence, in his soul, and not the behaviors and the trauma inducing things that, happened to me that came from him. And then having done that, it gave me a portal into feeling into that masculine side of my family, because it's pretty easy for me to go into the feminine lineage, but very hard to go into the masculine lineage. And so it gave me this portal to go into that. And it's an ongoing process. I can't say I've done tons of work on it. I haven't yet. it's just starting, but it opened a portal for me to feel into that lineage and to hopefully get to connect with them and get to maybe heal some things that have gone all the way to me, because it's about me, but it's also about my son. Right. And so I'm doing it for both of us.
Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. It is a process, right? And at the same time, this is a profound healing, the opening of this portal, and how beautiful that you can relate to your father now with so much love and compassion, connecting to his original essence before all of the things that had happened that it sounds like really put major stress on your relationship and your connection with him. So that's so beautiful. Thank you for
Mm.
sharing that. Okay. My goodness. I mean, you and I could talk about so many things, but I think we have to talk about your work. So, how did you get into specializing in menopause as this sacred initiation as opposed to being a medical condition that has to be managed? I'd love to hear this story.
Mm. Yes, it's a whole thing. I could talk about that for hours. So, the way that it happened for me is menopause really being a number of years in a woman's life. And when I talk about my menopause transition, I'm really talking about that year and a half that went from a number of months before my period stopped all the way to a number of months after my period stops, 18 to 24 months. And when that process actually started is when I started going really deep into what I call the descent of the initiation, because women's initiation has this U curve where you go down, there's the descent, you go down, there's a death, and then you go up again, there's the ascent. And so when I was doing my descent, three different events happened. I decided to change sectors and change jobs. It was the tail end of COVID, and I was starting to feel the effects of that on my mental health. And I had a really traumatic breakup with an ex-partner that created diagnosed trauma for me, relational trauma. And so that is how I started my menopause descent. And that's when I started also to have all of the symptoms, literally all the symptoms in the book. So lots of hot flashes, cognitive dysfunction, rumination, intense anxiety, 24/7, chronic insomnia. My hair was falling out. My skin was aging really, really rapidly. I had tinnitus. I had digestive issues. I had pretty much everything that is in the medical books. And it was really hard for me to decipher what was menopause, what was the result of the PTSD, and
Mhm.
also the job that I had just gotten into turned out to be extremely, extremely toxic, really, really toxic environment. And so it was really hard for me to tease out what was what. And so I went into this spiral, this vortex, and I got to a point where I had suicidal ideation.
Mm.
And that night where I was pretty convinced that I was going to die, that I was going to lose my house, I was going to lose my son. Really felt like I was losing my brain, my mind. Was the night that my ego died. I feel, and it's also the night where I heard a voice that said everything went really quiet, and I heard a voice that said, "It's okay, and I love you." And it was very clear, clear as day. I never heard it again, but I felt it after that. I felt it in my body. And after that night, I started a slow, slow, slow ascension, starting with, calling my doctor and her putting me on sick leave and then prescribing some hormonal replacement therapy for me. And then when I was on sick leave, is finally had the time and the brain space to look at what was happening and to actually realize that I was in the middle of something that was tremendously deep. And it wasn't just in my body or in my brain and my mental health. There was something deeply spiritual about what was happening. And when you go into burnout, it's never fun. You feel like you're failing. You feel like you're never going to recover. But for pretty much everyone that I've ever spoken to, when you look back on your burnout, you realize it's such a gift because it's really your body telling you it's time to stop. it's time to really slow down and it's time to feel. And that's what I was able to do. I had finally time to feel, and I had time to take stock of my life up until now, the trajectory of it. What was I really doing with it? What did I want to do now? And mostly for me, what was happening is the goddess was starting to pulse through me. And I was feeling her really quite strongly. And it took me a long time actually to be able to say in public, like, the goddess pulses through me. And I think she pulses through most women. It's just that sometimes we compress her, we refuse to listen to her. And I finally started to feel her and to listen. And I started to have all these uploads and these downloads and these ideas and these realizations and these revelations for many, many, many months. And that's when I realized also trying to get help, right? Like trying to get support, even trying to have conversations with people about what was happening to me. It was crickets. It was really at the time, right? So this is
Right.
around 2021, 2022. Painstakingly, I was able online, via Instagram to find a few people who were talking about menopause in a way that wasn't only about the hormones and about the symptoms, which is, we need that, of course, but I needed something more. I needed to understand the deeper meaning of what was happening because I could feel how transformative, how alchemical it was. And painstakingly here and there, I found a few people who had a different way, different narrative, and different teachings about it. And slowly I was able to piece things together. I was able to reconstruct the narrative. I was able to connect with other women who were also feeling what I was feeling. And so this is in the span of a few years. And it's also when I decided that what I had been doing up until then was no longer my life's mission. And I really wanted to contribute to the emergence, the sovereignty, and the freedom of women in midlife.
Oh my goodness, this is so powerful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I know that we spoke a little bit in our pre-podcast conversation about how upsetting it was for me to hear that some women do experience suicidal ideation when they're going through this transition, and if they don't know what's going on, right, they could end their lives because they're just lost, uninformed, and just caught up in all that confusion and the brain fog, the anxiety. I mean, what you described sounds like hell. I mean, legitimately. It just sounds like a nightmare, and it's amazing that you had the wherewithal to just move out of it. You heard the voice. It's going to be okay. I love you. And it's like something broke open and, you started doing your research, and it wasn't easy. You were piecing things together. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think there's so many women suffering in silence even now around this. And I hear over and over again. I mean, I feel like it's at least once a week. I talk to a girlfriend who's around my age. I'm 47.
Mhm.
And I have some friends who are a little bit younger, already having perimenopausal symptoms, and then friends that are a little bit older. And all the time I hear, I went to this doctor and they did shit for me. They literally did nothing, to the point where women have to do all this research on their own, come with a list of questions. It's forcing us to get in our own power to become our own advocates, but it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. We should be able to go to a practitioner and get the care we need. But yeah, this is a huge problem. So I
Yeah.
love the work that you're doing because we need a complete transformation of women's healthcare. Like 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. I hear so many horror stories. Every week there's a horror story. I'm like, I can't believe this. This is inhumane, the way women are treated. They're not listened to, they're gaslit in their appointments. It's super messed up. So I'm so happy and grateful that you're doing this work
Mm.
and supporting female-bodied beings through this transition, because I think the mainstream narrative is you're going downhill. You're dried out. This is the end. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Absolutely.
so not that. It's so not that. It's this sacred initiation. You're becoming the sorceress, the wise woman, all of that creative energy that was going towards maintaining this cycle, which is super important, now gets to go to creative projects, maybe an acceleration or an amplification of your spiritual gifts. I
100%.
mean, can you elaborate on that a little bit more? If you were to tell somebody, you need to think about menopause this way as opposed to what I just described, tell me more about this sacred
Yeah.
initiation.
Absolutely. Happy to. And the reframe is super, super important because, as you mentioned, the manifestations of this dominator culture, otherwise also called patriarchy, is that it feeds off of the labor of women, the energy of women, and it gaslights women when they are legitimately suffering and they have legitimate asks, right? Because they benefit from women being subservient, pliable, and feel entitled to our free labor, our sexuality, our children, our bodies, our energy, our time. And we also buy into it. I mean, we're all in the patriarchy. I'm assuming you and I are doing a certain decolonization work, but we are living and breathing in this patriarchal world and have been for a few thousand years. So that's the premise that we're working from. And the thing is, when we get to menopause, we have gone through two other rites of passage, which could have been more or less positive, right? So first menstruations, for me, being a Gen Xer, it was kind of like not a big deal, not a big event, but also not negative. And then motherhood is super celebrated, of course, right? And then we get to menopause, which is an incredibly important rite of passage. And we are surrounded with shame and silence and fear and medical gaslighting, et cetera, et cetera. And one of my mentors, her name is Jane Hardwick Collins, she says that whatever happens to a woman around the time of her rite of passage is the rite of passage. So if nothing happens, or if shame happens, or if difficulties, suicidal ideation happens, that is basically the message that society is sending you of how you should be embodying your next role. So what does that mean? It means stay silent, don't rock the boat, you don't get a say, you don't get care. You should just like slowly disappear, slowly dissolve, or take care of the grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
at some point. So that is like the implicit message that we're getting culturally. And this is why, for me, menopause is more of a cultural syndrome than anything else, because you go into communities that still live more the ancestral way. For example, if you go to Japan, elder women are revered. They're considered treasures. The older you get, the more value you actually have in society, which is not the case in North America, certainly. And so, of course, when we hit that wall of menopause, for many women, it's like hitting a wall. We not only realize like we're leaving behind this season that is so prized, where we are considered beautiful, we're considered useful, we're prized basically, and we're celebrated for the way we look, who we are, and what we do. And we get to this phase of life, which should be an elevation into, as you say, the wise woman, the harvest queen, eventually the elder, the matriarch. And the contrary actually happens, right? And so the reframe, which goes completely countercurrent to what's happening right now in the culture, it's a portal into our power. And as you said, all of the physiological energy that goes into our bleed every month, after we go through the difficulties of the menopause symptoms, all of that energy actually stays inside of us. And the thing that's really interesting also hormonally is that the two hormones, which were really, really high in our childhood, which is LH and FSH,
Mm-hmm.
actually go way up. So estradiol and progesterone go down, but LH and FSH go way up. And these two hormones are actually linked to spiritual gifts,
Mm.
right? So there is actually a physiological correlation between the fact that we enter these wisdom years in our bodies, of course, but it also correlates to opening up our psychic gifts, our spiritual sight, our vision, and our mission for the world. Because usually children are a little bit, older. My son is 15. They're a little bit more independent. And so we get to start looking at the world and seeing like, oh, okay, what is my legacy? Not just for me, not just for my family and my lineage, but for the world. And this is also when naturally in ancestral communities, we would have started to have access to leadership roles, to more responsibilities, to being of good counsel, to being part of the councils of elders. And this is not what's happening in society at the moment. And so I believe in terms of ancestral knowledge that it creates a big paradox inside of our bodies because we know that's what should be happening and it's not. And so that also creates anguish, anxiety, fear inside of us at the deepest level. And so for myself, the next embodiment that I'm feeling into, that I'm going towards, is the archetype of the matriarch, because I think that we know that patriarchy is dissolving, it's crumbling, it's on its last legs. And I think that we need to be embodying these matriarchs that are going to be bringing back something completely different. Maybe not in this generation. Maybe it'll take a few generations. But I think it's here, it's now that we start to embody her.
I just love everything you just said. You just dropped so much, so much wisdom there, Luce. This is amazing. I'm just like absorbing all of it right now. I'm so happy you're doing this work, and I have no doubt in my mind that you incarnated onto the earth at this time to help usher in this new timeline, more healed, more balanced in terms of divine masculine and feminine. This is absolutely your soul mission, and it's so obvious. Um I think this is a good time, since we're talking about psychic gifts and spiritual gifts. It'd be a good time for us to shift the conversation to some astrology.
Mm.
I'm really excited for this. So, people may not know that I'm an astro ancestral healing guide, and I'm currently in a quantum soul guidance practitioner program. It's centered around galactic astrology. And so it's adding this beautiful galactic layer of fixed stars and super galactic points to the planets in our natal chart. And astrology for me, it's not the rule, but it is a very powerful tool in terms of giving us a framework and a language for understanding ourselves, but also empowering ourselves as an energetic being on an ancestral healing journey. And so, having said that, I want to start with your big three: your sun, your moon, and your rising, because that really makes up the vast majority of your energetic signature. So, I mean, hello, the sun in Scorpio. This is where you shine. This is the special sauce that you mix into everything that you do that makes you stand out from the 11 other astrological signs. And each sign is a spectrum of psycho-spiritual energy. So there's a high expression and a low expression. So Scorpio is a water sign. It's fixed water. Water is our emotions, our feelings, our sentiments. And because it's fixed water, it's deep water. And for me, that is deep emotional sensitivity. And in the highest expression, that is balance with logic. You're not overcome, you're not ruled by your emotions. All of the water signs are super psychic and intuitive. So, hello, you are so connected to the unseen realms. I can feel that very strongly. But also, Scorpio is the sign of deep transformation, the phoenix rising from the ashes. And this is where you shine. I mean, it just makes so much sense that you're doing the work that you're doing, really holding the space. You yourself are a portal for transformation. If anybody's just in your vicinity, they're going to receive an activation or an upgrade. That totally makes sense. So the low expression of Scorpio, though, is keeping secrets. And if you think of that scorpion stinger, let me sting you before you get to me, because Scorpios are so sensitive. You feel everything. And also, I have a lot of Scorpio friends. I love them because no subject is off the table, right? There's nothing that's too taboo. We can go to these very dark places, but we can come back out. We don't live there. But I guess the low expression of Scorpio, you would live there. You could be in the darkness. But I also love how people with a strong Scorpio presence in their chart, it's like they were born with a PhD in psychology. You just understand the human psyche on a very deep level. And also, your BS meter is on point when somebody's telling a lie.
Can I
You can
just
feel it. Yeah, yeah.
insert something in there
Please, please.
related to midlife and menopause? The bullshit meter gets even stronger
Mm-hmm.
during and after menopause. It's just off the charts.
I believe it. That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. All right. So that's your sun. That's where you're shining. The moon is your emotions, your emotional core, your emotional inheritance, which includes your ancestral wounds and the gifts that they've given you. Your moon is in Virgo. My moon is in Virgo. So
Mm.
we have this in common. So one of the ancestral gifts of the moon in Virgo is this practicality, this precision, this organization, this energy of refinement. We're driven to make things better, which I feel is a healing signature. I feel like people with a strong Virgo presence can also be healers. It's also associated with the virgin, but not the woman who abstains from sex. It's the woman who is complete unto herself without a man, right? She's not seeking wisdom outside of herself. She goes within
Yeah, that
for
was always
wisdom.
the meaning, and it was distorted
Yeah,
by religion.
totally. So Virgo is mutable earth. So it's a totally different energy than Scorpio. Earth is what we use to build the structures that give us stability and security in our lives. So Virgo is very grounded. And unlike Gemini, which is mutable air, because there's some similarities, they're both very adaptive, very flexible. Gemini wants to know all the information. I'm a Gemini rising, so I'm always watching videos and reading books and listening to podcasts, right? We can overconsume. Virgo, though, is I want the most important information. Don't tell me all of the extraneous stuff. I don't care. What do I need to know? They want you to just boil it down to the most important points. So it's the most intellectual of all of the earth signs, actually. So the wound around moon and Virgo can be perfectionism. It can be just being super hard on oneself to the point that your self-talk is so toxic and negative. And so is any of this landing? Does any of this resonate for you? Tell me, how do you care for yourself with this moon in Virgo? Because we can be
Mhm.
very hard on ourselves.
So I'm 53, and having done all the work that I've done and having gone through the initiation of menopause, I feel like I've transformed that.
Hmm.
I've transmuted that. And one of the ways that it happened was during my menopause and specifically my burnout leave, I didn't have a choice but to slow down. I didn't have a choice but to be doing imperfect, messy action. And there was just no way that I was going to do everything perfectly like I was trying to do when I was younger. And actually prided myself on being this multitasking perfectionist who was also doing all the things at once. So I didn't have a choice. It was very, very humbling. But I decided to embrace the imperfection and to embrace the fact that it's probable that I will never be as productive as I was in my younger years, and to go through that process of being okay with that. So I feel like I have integrated that medicine.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a good thing, right? It's so freeing just to give yourself some grace and some compassion and some forgiveness. It's the best.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, so your rising sign is Aquarius, and the rising sign is based on your time of birth. So that's why I asked you that, because the rising sign shifts multiple times a day, and it's the vehicle for your divine mission. It's your perception of reality, and it's what people first pick up on when they meet you. So the sun is how you see yourself. It's like your egoic self. Your rising sign is who you are behaviorally. And for some people, that is in the shadow. They are not conscious of how they come across. So the people that you're meant to serve in this life, they're picking up on the rising sign qualities. So,
Interesting. Okay.
Aquarius is a totally different energy than Scorpio and Virgo. It's fixed like Scorpio, but it's fixed air. And air is our thoughts, our consciousness, our beliefs, our communication, it's ideas, and it's the energy of the visionary. So when I tune into fixed air, it's like deep space. You see far into the future. You're very much a humanitarian. You're very, very smart. And you also want to be an individual. You're also going to do things your way. Conforming is like the kiss of death. You're like, no way. Like, Aquarius is known to be like very avant garde. I'm not afraid to stand out. I have to stand out. And then I have a friend that I interviewed recently who said Aquarius is like the secret weirdo. Gemini is like, I'm a weirdo in your face. But Aquarius is like, I'm weird, but you'll find out in due time. I don't need to wear that on my sleeve.
Can I just
Yeah?
say,
Yeah, tell
um,
me.
I before I decided to become a coach and to do this work, I used to think of myself as secretly woo woo.
But now you're out in the open.
Totally. I'm in your
Yes.
face. I'm saying the things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're embracing it. I love it. And Aquarian energy, like I said, all of the signs are a spectrum. It's really beautiful in that it's inviting us to reckon with balancing individual, unique expressions with the health and well-being of the collective. And the collective is only healthy and amazing when each individual can express their authentic energetic signature. So
Totally.
we're in the age of Aquarius, and you decided to come in as this Aquarian being. And now I want to share with you your galactic placement. So
Yeah, I'm so excited for that.
I I'm so excited to share this with you. So like I said in the beginning, galactic astrology is the study of how like fixed stars and super cosmic points speak to our natal planets. So we're looking at where your soul has been, over eons. So you are a super old soul. You have tons of galactic placements. And your chart is radiant with galactic connections. So you carry royal stars in your chart. So that's Fomalhaut and Antares. You also have major alignments to the Great Attractor, the super galactic center, and I feel like you're a portal yourself. That's the influence of those super cosmic points in your chart. So all of this says is that you're on a mission that's bigger than just one lifetime. And I feel you spoke to that when you were sharing your story. You're like, I don't know if this is going to happen in my lifetime, in this lifetime, right? But I know you've had other lifetimes. So you're capable of alchemizing trauma, shadow, and ancestral heaviness into light and empowerment, of course. And then also your voice and your presence, they carry a frequency that inspires change and shifts perspectives on a large scale. Your voice and your leadership hold the power to inspire transformation for others, not just in your personal circles, but beyond that. So I'm seeing like this is not an official galactic life theme, but I see it. You're a family lineage alchemist too. You're here to help heal deep karmic and ancestral wounds so that future generations inherit freedom as opposed to limitation. And so the essence of your mission is basically that you can't not do this work. This is your mission. You were born with an inner knowing that there's another way to live, right? And you're doing it. There's a truer way to live. And your journey has been about embodying that truth so fully that it ripples out to everyone that you touch. You're here to heal deep lineage wounds, transmute dense energies, and seed higher consciousness into the world. So I
Wow.
know it's a lot. So tell me, how is this landing?
It's landing on fertile soil. It's something that I've been feeling for a long time. I think that also for a long time, I wasn't allowing myself to go there to be
Hmm.
who I'm supposed to be. And I think that, an added layer of the importance of the menopause initiation for me was I really felt like I was going in a certain direction And it's really like the goddess was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And she finally picked me up and she shook me and she set me on the right path again. And fast forward to last week, as I was sharing a little bit before the episode, I was in a very deep, week-long ceremony with my spiritual family. And during this week-long time that was completely out of time, very, very sacred with a lot of beautiful rituals, I was given my spiritual name by the grandmother of our spiritual community. And the lineage is based in Mexico, and it is based on a codex that is, thousands of years old. And the way that she created it and pieced it together is, my name is Kaotzen Kecholi. And it means the one who is the seeker on the road of divine feminine in all of her abundance.
I love it. That sounds perfect.
And
Perfect
it's
for
just
you.
like a tiny little sliver of its expanded meaning and all of the codexes and symbols and all of that. But while we were in that ceremony where I received that name, what I was also receiving was that everything was finally clicking into place
I
in the
love it.
directionality and in the uplifting of my life's mission. And that it was so much bigger than me. And I was just a part of it. So your words just sort of gave that galactic layer to something that I was feeling more on, I would say, like the earth plane and probably more the shamanic planes as well. But it added that galactic layer on top of it. So I really, really, truly appreciate it.
My gosh, of course. This is so fun. Like, this is my thing. I mean, you have soul connections to multiple star systems in addition to those super galactic points and those royal stars that I mentioned. So it'll be really fun to give you a full reading and dive into all of this because I think you're going to trip. You're going to trip out. This is so cool. When I saw my own placements, I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, because I was going to do another astrology training program after I first got certified during COVID, during the
Mm,
pandemic, because I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm gonna learn a new skill. I almost signed up for a Hellenistic astrology training, which is like very Greek, very classical. And at the last minute, I was like, I don't think this is for me. And then I found this, and I was like, oh, this is why I didn't sign up for this. You're multi-galactic. You are connected to many different star systems and heavy connections to Antares. That
Taurus.
Antares, and it's it's one of the four royal stars. It's also known to be a intergalactic portal. So I just see more and more evidence that you are a portal. Like,
Mm,
really. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to dive into this, but I just wanted to give you a taste and hopefully it sounds like this was affirming that you are absolutely on the right path. And this is the soul mission. This was your assignment to do
totally.
this. I love
Absolutely.
it. Amazing. Well, so could you tell us a little bit about any projects that you're working on that you're excited about? Like what are you up to these days?
Yes, I am, of course, doing one-on-one coaching for women who, live in Montreal or are willing to travel here. I've actually started offering one-on-one somatic tantric sanctuary sessions that includes platonic touch, breath work. I actually had one this morning with a client and it was insanely powerful. I mean, already this work is really, really powerful that I do, but the one-on-one in person, hands-on is just incredibly healing and it just accelerates the person's potential.
Amazing.
And so that's what I'm really focusing on right now. I'm actually preparing a workshop that I'm going to be launching at the Toronto Tantra Fest. I think it's going to be September 5th. And it's called Matriarch. And I've been channeling her and really being in contact with her since probably January. And this is going to be a powerful, powerful workshop. And I feel like it's also going to open the way to maybe a portal of, a membership. I call it membership, but I don't actually like that word. More like a community experience around feeling into the matriarch in a way that is the ancestral way from before patriarchy, and not the matriarch that we might think is a woman who isn't juicy, doesn't have her sexuality online and all that stuff, but the matriarch who is the primordial, mature feminine, who is drenched in eros and connected to the elements, connected to her power, connected to her community. That's the one, that's the thing that I really want to bring in. And I'm really also feeling into another collective experience for women specifically who, and it happens a lot, unfortunately, around menopause, who have lost their libido, lost their desire, who are struggling to find their juiciness again. And I really, really want to be forming something like a community and some teachings and some practices for the women who feel it in their bones that their eros is the key to their empowerment and they really want to find it again. So that's really important to me as well.
Beautiful. I love it. These spaces are so needed. So thank you. Thank you for saying yes to walking this path. So if people want to find out more about these projects, if they want to work with you, they want to learn more, where should they go?
So I have a beautiful online community on Facebook called the Midlife Temple, which is very, very easy to find. I have a website, which is my coaching business. It's Emergence, IMMERGENCE .co,
Hmm.
which has some of my offerings. And I'm also on Instagram under emergence.co. Yeah. DM me, email me, join the Midlife Temple. I would love to connect with anybody who resonates with this.
Amazing. Well, I have one last question for you. And this is a question I ask all of my guests. What are the cycles that you are starting in your lineages in this
Mm.
lifetime?
The cycle of thriving, definitely. The cycle of erotic sovereignty. The cycle of, I would say, of chosen family. Yeah.
Beautiful. Luce, this has been an absolutely beautiful conversation. I'm so happy that we've connected. Thank you so much for this. This has just been wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's been super illuminating too, and such a treat to receive the Galactic reading.
I'm so glad. Yeah, well, it was my pleasure to pass on this information. This is my work in this world. I feel very strongly. So yeah, this has just been absolutely wonderful. So everybody, we will see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Take care. Bye, everybody. Bye, Luce.
Bye.